strawberry pizza has a tender sugar cookie crust topped with sweetened cream cheese, strawberry glaze, and then sliced strawberries. It is definitely a Wilkes family's favorite dessert. Today we're making it in small batch form, but if you need a full-size version of the recipe, check the link down in my description below. Well, this is the perfect way to end Pizza Month here on Small Batch A Big Taste. And if you've missed any of the other pizza recipes we've made during the month, I'll link to them in the video description down below. But the strawberry pizza, like I said, is totally a family favorite. We're going to start with our strawberry glaze because it needs time to cool. So for the strawberry glaze, you're going to need a half of a cup of mashed or pureed strawberries. I've just thrown them in my little food processor here and blended them together. You can mash them by hand. You could also throw them in a blender, but I like it a pretty nice smooth puree. So in a small saucepan, we're going to take our mashed strawberries. It's about a half of a cup. Make sure you get all of it in there. We're going to add in 2 tablespoons of granulated sugar and half of a tablespoon of cornstarch. This is what's going to thicken it up. Then just go ahead and whisk it together. We're going to take it over to the stove and we're going to cook it over a medium-low heat till it comes to a boil, and then go ahead and just let it simmer. Make sure you stir it frequently or pretty much continuously so it doesn't burn. And then it's going to thicken up. It's going to get shiny and glossy, and it won't look as cloudy as it did before. So once it's thick and glossy, go ahead and pull it off the heat and let it cool. And then our second step is to make up the sugar cookie crust. For that, we're going to use a quarter of a cup of salted butter. And I like to just take my hand mixer and just kind of cream that butter up just a little bit first. It makes it a little easier to incorporate. Now, here's a tip for you. You'll find that when you're working with these smaller amounts of ingredients, sometimes they tend to jump around in the bowl, especially when you're mixing them with a mixer. And one trick I found is to do it on low speed. If you try to do it too fast, it just jumps around even more. So I put it on the lowest speed my mixer will go, and that just seems to work better. All right, then we're going to get the butter off of there, and we're going to add in a half of a cup of, I use unbleached all-purpose flour. And then we're going to put in 2 tablespoons of powdered sugar. And this is what's going to help give that crust a very sweet and tender taste to it. All right, and then go ahead and mix this together. Again, do it on a slow speed so you don't end up with ingredients all over. Now, one thing you're going to notice with this dough, it's probably more like a shortbread dough than a sugar cookie dough actually, is that as you're mixing it together, it's not going to start coming together like cookie dough usually does. It's going to look kind of dry and powdery, and that's okay. Don't freak out. A lot of it's going to depend on where you live actually, and how much moisture is in the air. You know, when I lived in Portland, this dough reacted differently than it does now that I live in dry Utah. And in Portland, I could basically, when it got to this part where the butter was pretty well incorporated and broken up, I could take my hands and just bring the dough together. But here in Utah, it's still a little dry and powdery. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little bit of water, and just a teaspoon at a time, I'm going to add some water in until the dough, some of that flour, it doesn't look quite as dry. And again, you're going to have to kind of do this just by feel and the way it looks, because it will vary depending on where you live and what your weather's like. All right, but I can see that some of those clumps are starting to come together a little bit more. So I'm thinking that I'm going to be able to, oh, I think it's still a little dry. I put about a teaspoon in. I think it's going to take about 2 teaspoons. Let's see. You just don't want to put too much water in. If for some reason you get too much water in, go ahead and add a little bit more powdered sugar or flour. But just do it a little at a time. Okay, I think we got it now. Yeah, see, now my dough is coming together. And it'll feel moist or a little damp, so that's what you need. All right, so once our dough has come together, we are ready to roll it out. Now I'm going to use just a piece of parchment paper. I'm just using a small baking sheet because remember, we're making a small batch size. And you have a couple options here. I'm going to, first of all, lightly flour that. You can roll it out to a rectangle, or you can make 2 circles if you want to make it a little fancier, I guess, and have individual serving sizes. I've just made 2 circles, and I use just a cookie cutter, kind of a big circle cookie cutter I had in, it's actually, I think, meant for hand pies. So there you go. If I can find a link, I'll link to it down below. But since I have these in circles, we're going to roll this one out into a rectangle. And then we're just going to, like I say, you don't want to get this dough too thin, but you don't want it too thick. It really kind of almost is personal preference, how I'm more of a thin sugar cookie person than a thick sugar cookie. So if you like a thicker sugar cookie, maybe you're going to want to roll this out a little thicker. But then just kind of use your hands to kind of form it in. It doesn't have to be a perfect shape. It can be just very natural. It doesn't have to be super precise because it's going to taste the same way either way. All right, got my rectangle. And mine, I'd say it's just under 1/4 of an inch thick. I don't know if you can see that. But, all right. And mine is not a perfect rectangle. And now we're going to go ahead and put this on our baking sheet. Can you see that? Yeah, it's not perfect. But it's going to work. And then we're going to put it into a 325-degree oven, 325 degrees Fahrenheit, and bake it for 12 to 15 minutes. You want to watch it. The bottom is going to get golden brown. You see like this one. But the top is still going to look fairly not brown. So, because you don't want to overcook it because it is so thin. If you overcook it, it's going to get too crispy. So just watch it as it just starts to look like slightly golden brown underneath, or maybe just a little bit golden on the edges. That's what you want. So when our crust is baking and then cooling, we're going to make the cream cheese filling. I have 4 ounces of softened cream cheese in here. You want to make sure it's soft because you don't want any lumps in your cream cheese. We are going to add in 1/4 to a 1/2 teaspoon of vanilla. You can never have too much vanilla as far as I'm concerned. And then 1/4 cup of sugar. And we're just going to use our little hand mixer here. And again, that little trick about doing it on slow seems to work better with these smaller amounts. And just do it until all that sugar, vanilla is incorporated, and then you have a nice smooth cream cheese. Now, if you have a lemon laying around that you want to use part of, a nice little squeeze of lemon works great in here, but I don't want to cut into a whole lemon just for a couple drops. We are nice and smooth, and we are ready to get that crust out of the oven. We have now all the components we need to assemble our strawberry pizza. Now, granted, this recipe may be a little bit more labor intensive than some of my other dessert recipes, but I promise you it is so worth it. So I've got my sugar cookie base, my cream cheese layer, my glaze, and I have taken about, it's going to depend on the size of your strawberries, 4 or 5 strawberries and slice them up, which is going to go on top. And we'll start by adding the layer of cream cheese. And I like to use an offset spatula to spread it. Now remember, it's kind of fragile, so be gentle. And I like to leave just a little bit of edge of sugar cookie showing. Then we'll add the strawberry glaze. Go ahead and spread that. Then we're ready to add the strawberries. All right, our strawberry pizza is assembled. It is ready now to cut and enjoy. Now, in case you end up with a little bit of leftovers, you want to keep them refrigerated because of the cream cheese layer, but I pretty much guarantee you're not going to have any leftovers. So we're just going to go ahead and cut it in half. And it's best just to kind of go down, straight down. And I'm actually going to take it off this cooling rack because it'll be easier. And I like just to cut it into 4 pieces, but you can cut it into more if you want. So I hope you will enjoy this Wilkes family favorite strawberry pizza. Perfect way to end Pizza Month here on Small Batch, Big Taste. And thanks for joining me, and I'll see you in the next video.